I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently. Whether you feel stuck in survival, navigating a change, or seeking more for your life, may this podcast be your weekly nudge to take a risk to build a life that is uniquely bold, authentic, and in alignment with your deepest values. After a decade of coaching individuals from corporate leaders to creative artists to multi-million-dollar CEOs, I'm convinced we are far closer than we realize to what we deeply desire, and it's a willingness to do differently that can change everything. Welcome back, Differently listeners. It's a new year, and with that often comes new ideas, business launches, or pivots in your life and business. I wanted to bring my friend and colleague Melissa Davis back on to talk about foundational clarity to help you assess what's going to truly move your business forward this year. Check out her previous episodes. I've put links in the show notes. Whether you are just starting out with an idea or a seasoned entrepreneur, I think you're going to find just the nugget you needed to hear today. She's going to break down some of the key pieces to having foundational clarity in your business, which starts with values. In my experience, this work deepens over time, and each new level of clarity has allowed me to amplify my impact and increase the level of fulfillment I have as an entrepreneur. While Melissa supports people around business and I support people around making big choices and changes in their everyday lives, we come together on the idea that clarity and foundation are essential for true lasting change, growth, and momentum. Be sure to check out her free tool, the Clarity Canvas, also a link in the show notes, and she has an exciting invitation for you. Be sure to listen through all the way to the end. Enjoy. Melissa Davis, welcome back to Differently.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me back.
Thank you for coming back on kind of a spur of the moment notice inspired idea. It's a new year. We're still in the beginning of a new year. And with that comes, I think, a lot of new ideas and even new launches or pivots that we want to make in our business. And I wanted to bring you back to really talk about this foundational clarity canvas and a boot camp that I saw come to my email. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like a really fun conversation that's essential for moving forward and gaining real traction in our businesses, and have you break down that approach. And what I feel like you and I always align on is, while you support people directly in their businesses, and I support people around making choices and changes in their lives, which sometimes overlap to business, I feel like we always come together and align so deeply on this idea of clarity and foundation are so essential for true lasting change, growth, momentum, all those things. So you've created this canvas, which I love. And by the way, you can link to it in the show notes. It's a free tool Melissa has created, and it's really, really valuable. It helps you kind of walk through getting these pieces that she's going to talk about together for yourself. So check that out in the show notes. But what I would love for you to start is when we're not clear in our business, when there's a lack of clarity, what are the indicators and symptoms that show up that we can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, well, and going back to what you said about how both of us are in the work of helping people get clarity so that they can move forward and go after what they want, right? And maybe getting clarity on what you want too, right? And whether that's in business or in life or in both, I know for all the entrepreneurs I work with, it's all the same stuff. And you and I aligned so much on our values and our vision for what we want for the people that we work with, right? We work with ambitious women and men who want to go and create impact, leave legacies, go and do the big thing, whatever that looks like, and be happy and fulfilled. And all of those drivers are there. Um, so the biggest symptom when we're lacking that foundational clarity, which is what you do and what I do, is that it's really hard to move forward when we don't have that foundational clarity, right? We get stuck, we spin our wheels, we live in frustration, and there's all this stickiness and all this resistance that happens when we don't get that foundational clarity. And so for you, it's kind of moving out of survival model and into a thriving model, and working through all of the stuff that keeps us stuck. For me, in entrepreneurship, and by the way, they both have to happen. The work that you do has to happen for entrepreneurs to be able to move forward into strategic clarity and then into execution strategy too. But the biggest symptoms are trying to move forward and not being very successful. Because when we're not clear at the foundational level of our business, we don't have the foundation of who we are and what we stand for in our business, of who our niche really is, where they are on their journey, the unique problem we solve for them, how we're different from everyone else doing the same work or similar work, and the offer that we have for them, in a way to talk about it. Articulation is huge. I just realized recently that I didn't truly start believing in what I stood for or what I believed around the work that I was doing until I found the words to talk about it.
Wow.
There was this
Say that
immense
again in case somebody missed it,
see if
because
I
that's
can.
really powerful.
I didn't really truly believe in myself and the work that I wanted to do until I found the words to articulate what I stood for and what I believed, that explained why I was driven to do the work that I'm doing. I had to find the right words. I had to find the right way to talk about it. And once I did, I really felt conviction around it in a way that I just couldn't have without finding the words. So articulating what we stand for, why we do the work that we do, and to be able to talk about our business at that foundational level is so critical to having the confidence and the belief that it's not just possible, but it already exists.
Well, and I think that is so important what you just said. And also just want to say for people listening, like, for me, that's been such an evolution. Like, it's not, I think you even say it, it's not clarity is not a once and done. It's something you have to revisit over and over and over again. And I feel like, it's taken many iterations to get to the point that you're talking about, where you actually can capture it in a way that aligns with that deep vision that you hold in your heart. Getting from like feeling that to being able to express that is a process, and that's what you
Yeah.
help people do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's incredible to be in that spot, to witness that. Like, I think there's this, like, I'm sure you experience it too, when you get to be there and kind of help people work through that. It's just, there's nothing more exciting. Outside of these big life events that of course, but there's nothing more exciting and fulfilling and energizing to me than understanding myself at a deeper level and having those breakthroughs and those ahas. And when you can take action on them, that's just,
Next
that's
level.
everything. That's everything, right? And it's crazy. I don't know if if this happens for you and your clients, but sometimes we have to like relearn clarity a number of times before it really integrates, before we can really internalize it.
I was just going
And
to say
take action on it.
100%. I had a client just yesterday. It was like she said, she had this new level of clarity, and she's like, but we've been working on this for like, we've been talking about this for such a long time, but she reached this like new level of clarity. And it does take time. Some of those things take time. Some of it
Yeah.
comes quickly, but some of it takes time. And so be patient. I
Yeah.
have not always been patient with myself with that process, especially around my business. I went through
Me neither.
so much frustration and aggravation and just felt so much urgency. Like I had to get this. I had to get this. And
Mhm.
when it does come together in that way, you do have this level of clarity that you're able to take action in ways that you just were not able to before.
Yeah,
And
it's when you can internalize it. And that's what's so powerful about what I call it a belief stack. But when we understand the beliefs that drive us to do the work, whatever it is, right? Whether we're, a coach, or we make, uh, we make designer clothes, or whatever it is, understanding the beliefs um, as the drivers around what we're meant to do, there's this kind of stacking that I call it, this series of sentences or phrases that really embody and explain why we do the work that we do and bring in our mission. That's it's a combination of the few of the things that are in the foundational clarity, but just coming up with a controlling belief around why we do the work that we do makes us feel so committed and really have that conviction around it, because it's it puts words to our drive and our passion. And sometimes when we don't have clarity around it, we just feel it, we're really tempted to just try to jump into action because that's the only thing that we can do. And as you said, you feel this massive urgency. And that massive urgency without having clarity means that you're driving forward, but you're pushing in all of these different directions, and you're trying things out, and it gets frustrating, and you can feel like you're really off track. And it causes doubt, and it causes confusion, and really makes us start to question whether we have what it takes. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because it's there. It's just that you need to chisel away all the stuff around it so that you can get to the diamond and you can talk about it, right? And you can take action around that clarity. So it's a really cool process, and process is the key word. Clarity is a process, not a gift. The gift is your passion and the drive and your capability for bringing it to the world. Clarity is a process.
mm. Well, and just to give people an example, you helped me get clarity around my, I guess, belief stack. And just to give a couple examples, one of them is I believe that people are far closer than they realize to what they desire. And it's a willingness to look at that foundation and think and do differently that can change everything. I mean, I see it all the time. People think it's this huge, overwhelming thing they have to undertake. And often it's just a simple shift in perspective that all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh. So that's
Everything.
one of them. Another one is that, I believe people are the experts on their lives. I'm the expert on helping them clear all the crap that prevents them from leading that and following that and trusting that powerfully. And those beliefs, I have to look at that over and over and over again to remind myself who I am and what I'm up to on any given day. And that brings, just like you're saying, brings so much more behind what I choose to do and the actions that I take and how I take those actions. So
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. So powerful.
Yeah. And yeah.
So
And I'm so glad that you brought that up for yours. Um, because it's incredibly powerful, and I get chills, and it's, like, I immediately get why you do what you do, and I get your mission. I get it, and I'm on
yeah,
board,
yeah.
right? And it's amazing.
So maybe before we move on, I think in the Clarity Canvas, you walk them through an exercise to identify some of those beliefs. Is that right? Could you give them
Yes,
a
we
tip,
do.
maybe just a little simple step they might take to identify that?
Yeah, and so, we really start actually with looking at values. We have a lot of beliefs about the world, and to kind of really try to like pinpoint where the beliefs are coming from that support or explain why we do what we do can be challenging. Some people, it's really easy to just kind of get in there. Um, by prompting like, what do you believe is possible, right? If I know that you're really passionate about um, creating opportunities for kids to have access to art programs, um, it's asking questions like, why, what do you believe is possible when every kid has a chance to express themselves, right? It's kind of like digging in, and there's a number of different belief prompts that we can use. Where does the world look like? If every kid had access to art every day, right? Or what happens when that's not available, right? And you kind of dig into that. But when we start with values and we understand the top values that are big drivers for you, we can really kind of hone in around those values, and use them as guides for understanding what those beliefs look like. So, an example around that might be, let me just think of a personal one, because that's always, I think, really interesting to look at. Um, Actually, I have a really good one for a client that came to mind. One of her very highest values is work life balance, or family, depending on how she wants to do it. And I know, Carla, you can very much relate to this.
Yes.
But she is a social media manager, so she runs a company and manages social media for her clients. But what's really critical for her is to have that work life balance. And through our exploration, she discovered that what she really believed was that we don't need to sacrifice our work to value our family and to be there for
Mm.
them, and that it shouldn't be that way. It's really the systems and structures that are in place for traditional business that get in the way of that. And so
Mm.
what she believes is that it's possible to do it a different way. It's possible for us to work in a way that allows us to be there for our kids. So she
Wow.
has two young ones. She has a newborn and a toddler. And it's a belief that's tied to that value. So understanding our top values can give us the more narrow view on where to look at the beliefs that we have around those values. So, it's either we're kind of starting from scratch and we look through values, and there are a number of different prompts that we can use to get there. Or if we know what we're already really passionate about, but we don't have a way to talk about why it's so important to us, we can start with that by asking questions like, why is it not okay if kids don't have access to art, right? And things like that. So I hope that helps as an example.
That's a great example. As you're describing that example, I'm thinking about, you talk about some of our values are um, lived and some are not fully lived, right? They're
Mhm.
more aspired, I think you call it aspired
Yeah.
values. But in that case of a mom, when you get in touch with that value and start looking through that lens in your business, like like you hold on to this idea that it is possible and this doesn't have to get in the way. Like I just felt creativity and innovation, like just open up so much, and like just an invitation to get creative for how, if I believe this, how can this lead and show up in the way that I lead and run my business?
Yeah. And it can
Incredible.
be, yeah, well, we could geek out on values forever because
I
this
know.
is Carla knows this about me. I will have to um, but the really cool thing about values is how incredibly dynamic they are and how many roles they play in our business and in our life. And they're not just what's important to us and use them as guideposts. They show up in the problem that we help solve for our ideal niche. Sometimes we forget that what's important to us is, we can tend to believe it's just important to us and it has nothing to do with my business, when it could have everything to do with your business. And your ideal niche may be looking for somebody who values that as much as they do, and it becomes a central part of your business, maybe just in how you show up to them, or maybe as a central piece of your business and you haven't really even considered it. Like my client, with making her message and the entire structure of her business exist to support a different way to work together.
Okay,
So,
so you're
um,
making a perfect segue. Before you keep going, I just, on her canvas, she's got the layers of clarity. And so it's a pyramid, and at the bottom it's foundational, which we've been talking about. Vision and values, right? All live in that foundational piece. And then now you're talking about strategic, which is the next layer. Is that right?
no, not necessarily. This is all
Oh,
actually foundational clarity.
really?
Yep.
Okay, so finish that and then take us to the next layer. So how does that, yeah, keep going.
Well, everything in the canvas and everything that we're talking about, all the work you do and all the work that I do, is
Is
in that
all in the
foundational
foundation.
level. Yeah, and so where we run into trouble is when we try to move into strategy, right? We
Yes.
try to work with a social media strategist, right? We're trying to build funnels. We're trying to figure out how to sell to people. And if we're not clear on all of these pieces, so including our niche and where we meet them in the journey and what makes us uniquely different, what we believe, and figuring out how to talk about what we stand for. All of that is in the foundational clarity base that we need to work through to be able to move into strategic clarity. And one of the points that you made earlier, I think, is really important, that we're always revisiting that foundation. So what tends to happen is we get clear enough so that we can take action. And I use 80% as my number. It's more than 75%, which feels a little bit, on the low end to me, but it's not by much. Clear enough to move forward is the benchmark, right? Clear enough to take intentional action. And it's inspired and intentional, and we at that point can move into strategy, and we can then move into execution. But we're going to find at certain points that we need to circle back, just like your clients do with you, because we get out into the world and we refine our clarity. We get more information. We run into little roadblocks and go, oh, I didn't work through this part, right? Or I thought I had it and I've got new language, or I've got new information that now sends me back, and I want to revisit this piece because I think that I need to refine it a little bit more. So we're always weaving back down into foundational clarity, but it's really important to work through that foundation to a certain level of clarity before jumping into strategy.
I want to ask you something, because just to what you're saying, I think that it's so often in our world, we're drawn to wanting to apply sort of surface quick solutions, right? Like we want to solve the problem quickly, and we can look to, like you're saying, we can look to a strategy or like a new tool in our business. And while sometimes those are the things that we need, sometimes it's not the thing that we need. And so,
Yeah.
how can you help people know um, when it's time to revisit that foundation? Like, I know in my work, it's when you're spinning your wheels or you're repeating patterns that are unfulfilling and not really leading to where you want. Is it the same for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So internally, it's feeling frustrated. It's the urgency without clear action on what to do next. If we're not clear on what to do next, then we don't have foundational clarity. Well, it may be that we're trying to execute on something and we don't have strategic clarity. So just to kind of be clear, we want to ask the question, is it that I don't have foundational clarity and I need to go back and figure out who my niche is, right? Where I'm meeting them on the journey? Am I missing the language on how to talk to them on where they are, where I'm meeting them, on what they want, right?
Or are my
Or is
values
it
misaligned?
right, right, exactly. Or is it that I don't understand the strategy or I don't have a strategy, right? And I'm trying to execute on something and I don't have a strategy. So it's kind of coming back and resetting and saying, what am I not clear on? I really need to understand what I'm not
Mm.
clear on, because if I can't take action, then I don't have clarity at a level below. Um, and and so that's kind of number one. On the external level, um, what can happen is, this is a really good example, and this happens all the time. This comes from that same social media manager client, right? We've talked about this a number of times, but I've also, I work with a lot of marketing people, and what happens is we get to them. We decide, I want to take action. I just really need to take action. I need to be more active on social media, right? Or I want to be more visible or whatever. And we engage with external help. And it may be going to that social media manager or that strategist or a social media person and saying, I really want to get more visible. And they struggle to help us, right? We can't provide them the clarity that they need to go out and do their job. And that can show up in a number of ways. It might just show up as, we're not happy with what that social media person is doing for us, because we can't give them clear expectation or direction on how to create for us in a way that's meaningful. So we're struggling to articulate to them what we want and who to talk to and how to talk about it. And we're expecting them to know and to do it, and they can't. It's not their job.
Mm.
If we don't have a really strong foundation, a social media manager can't execute for us.
Wow.
And a social media strategist can't execute. And so I get a lot of referrals actually from marketing strategists, because they have a consultation with somebody and they go, they're not clear. They're not, they're trying to decide between three niches still, right? This is a big problem for us visionaries, right? It feels like cutting your arm off to have to
Yes.
say, I'm not going to serve these people, right? Because I could, right? What I do, I
Mhm.
could serve them. And why shouldn't I? Except you can't talk about it in a really meaningful way, because you're trying to talk about three different problems, right? And you're
Mm.
trying to connect with three different people. Or it's not connecting with anybody because you're not talking about
You're trying to
why you're
speak to
doing it.
everyone, or you're
Yeah,
trying to speak to everybody,
you're
right?
trying to speak to everybody, and that's such a watered down. Then you're the same business coach that everybody else is, and you're not speaking directly to anybody. Something that's crucially important that every entrepreneur needs to know: your ideal niche believes what you believe, and they value what you value.
Mm.
Yes, there are values that you have are only for you, but most of your highest values you connect deeply with your ideal niche. And so understanding those values and understanding the beliefs that you share around the work that you do for them is so critical, that just having that makes the rest of it, the rest of those clarity points, so much easier.
Hmm.
But it's the
That's
most
so
important thing.
that's so fascinating. I did a business mastermind, and that's just reminding me, like, I was really just wowed in that experience by the like-minded people that she attracted into the program. Like, we were all very family oriented. We shared so many of the same values around like family and business. And it's
Yeah.
because of just what you're saying. And I noticed that on her podcast, she's always talking about those things, which makes so much sense. And I think you helped me to really see that too, that there are so many shared values in my clients and who I
Mhm.
attract. And that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And it's,
Okay.
and that's such a central piece to understanding our niche. And not not being clear on our niche is probably the number one problem that entrepreneurs say they're experiencing.
And you're
Um,
saying this foundational work and knowing our values can really help to identify that.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
central part of who our niche
Yeah.
is.
Now, in your work, is that tied to differentiation? Like, are those
Yeah.
kind of one and the same?
Yep. So there are a number of components to differentiation. We often think of the more classic differentiation, categories as in like I'm for single moms, right? It's for um, college students, right? It's for LGBTQ um, business owners, right? It's, so we have this kind of demographic um, classification for our differentiation. Values play a huge role in differentiation. So for example, what differentiates me in as a business coach is that I focus on foundational clarity, so that really early clarity piece for impact entrepreneurs. Um, and it's focused really on those who want to be around um, or work with a coach who also shares that vision for creating a big impact. I work with really driven entrepreneurs who who aren't just interested in learning more about themselves. They really want to be able to take action.
Mm.
And there's that tangible piece of I want to get clear on this about myself. I want to go deep so I can take action. I'm not interested in tactics. I'm not interested in, I'm looking to go deep. And that's that value of personal growth, of continuous growth, combined with a value of innovation and going out and doing something and solving problems. And so,
That's
these
awesome.
values play a big role in that differentiation. And when we kind of look at, what are the qualities? That's what differentiation is. What are the qualities of this coach or this service provider or this product that are important to me? And values are really high up there. And then you look at other things like, whether it's virtual or in person, or if it's, a low cost or a high cost offer, or it's, there are all these different elements that play into the qualities that are really important to me. I think I gave an example in there that's like super simple. If you're a busy sports parent or a school parent or whatever, and you've got to grab dinner in between events or after sports and it's late. And what are the qualities that you look for in a solution to that problem, right? You got to feed your kids. It's late. They're hungry. You're cranky, right? Let's say I really value nutritious food, right? I'm not interested in feeding my kids junk, right? And I'm also really interested in making my kids happy and having it be fast and easy, right? So these are like the qualities that I'm looking for in the solution to the problem that I'm having. The problem being I don't have enough time, right? And I need to feed my kids. And so the qualities I'm looking for are healthy-ish, right?
Yeah.
Fast, and my kids are going to love the food, right? So And that's not all of the restaurants that are out there. That's a handful of restaurants. And so
Salad and go.
just a really simple example of what that looks like. But it's the qualities that I use to decide whether a solution is a good fit for me. That's all differentiation is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I want to talk about one more piece that you are
I
tying
know there's so
into
many
this
pieces.
boot camp that you have put together. And so I'd love to hear like what's the I know this was an inspired idea to create the boot camp to really dive into all of these pieces we're talking about. Share a little bit about that. And then we'll
Yeah.
cover that last piece of that you're going to be covering in the boot camp.
Yeah. So the boot camp is really inspired by offering support around that canvas. So I created a foundational clarity guide and fillable canvas. And the guide is an overview of all of those clarity points. So that's your values, the roles you play in your business, the controlling belief that explains everything you do, your niche. And there are these components of niche that come together, which is really cool. Differentiation, the offer, your aligned offer. I think there's one that I'm missing, but that's okay. And so the workbook gives an overview on how to approach them, but it's not, it's not the coaching per se that goes with it. It's meant to give you a template for this is what you really need clarity on. And the boot camp was really an inspired, I think event or thing that I really wanted to be able to do and test out is kind of like work through that in a group coaching setting. And offer this really fast but impactful support on getting that filled in so that you can feel confident moving forward, or helping you identify where you're really missing, where you have gaps, and advice on how to work through that.
Love
So,
that.
and it includes a session with me because I do, I didn't, I never want to leave anybody kind of hanging. So, my job then is to help you after we work through it, or those that are there identify whether it's clear from an outside perspective, offer my advice, and kind of identify any areas that you have gaps and focus on here. And here's some guidance on how to do that.
I think that one-on-one help is so important. Okay, so let's touch on, we have a few minutes left. Let's touch on that last piece that you're going to cover in the boot camp, which is the aligned offer. So share a little bit about what that aligned offer means to you, because I have a feeling it's a little different.
Well, your aligned offer is really that meaningful offer out in the world that really embodies your mission and is aligned to the problem that you're solving for your niche. And the challenge is that there are so many ways that we can serve even our ideal niche, right? And we can get lost in understanding how we best show up to do that. And so by looking at the whole, you can more easily identify what are my real gifts around that, and how do I apply that to what I'm really offering. And there are a number of factors that go into it, but it's last on there for a reason, and sometimes we can jump into the offer first thing, right? I do this for, and we work on the for part later. It really should come after we've gotten clarity on why we're doing it and who we're really meant to do it for, and then understand how our gifts really fit into that.
It makes so much sense because it ties back to even doing this personal work, right? People want to change their actions to change their results in their life, whether it's relationships or whatever. but unless you go back and understand, like actions can change your results, but if you haven't addressed the foundation, typically that's going to rear its head over and derail your actions. And so it
And you
makes,
don't know what to
again,
change.
yeah, again, it like, and that's how you come up with like aligned actions. Cause if you're clear about where you're going, then you can
Right.
align your actions to that. And it's no different here. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And Melissa, this is for aspiring and pivoting entrepreneurs.
Yes. Yeah. It's really ideal for either, taking a first pass at all of it, or pivoting, or coming back and realizing that you
Revisiting.
really didn't have full clarity, or maybe it's simply to reinforce what you already are pretty sure you understand about your business. But it's definitely for those who are committed to making an impact with their work, and feel a real commitment around that.
Amazing. So when is it?
It's February 12th through the 14th.
Okay. And we will put a link in the show notes. Do you want to just point people in the direction, or is it too long of a link to say out loud?
It's too long of a unique link.
Okay.
And the foundational clarity guide and canvas can also be found. That's a free guide and canvas, can be found at my website, which is humanityinc.world.
Okay. And we'll put the link to the boot camp. So if you're, have a new business idea or thinking about it or launching, or you're pivoting and just need to revisit that foundational piece, check out Melissa's boot camp. So exciting. I'm so happy you came on to share all about this. I could talk about this stuff all day. It's near and dear to my heart. Is there any inspiration or just words of from your own experience? If somebody's out there and is kind of on the fence of an idea, or finding that courage to launch, or even to pivot and revisit, is there anything that you would say to just encourage those hearts?
Yeah, really, truly, that if you have the fire, if you have that urgency, that feeling that you're meant to do something bigger, then you are. That's
So
it.
good.
Don't let the feelings that come with not being crystal clear on it dissuade you from moving, dissuade you from seeking it out. And sometimes patience is involved, but if you have that fire, then you have the capability. And that clarity is a process, not a gift. The gift is your fire.
So beautiful. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Love spending time with you. Thank you for sharing all of this. And I hope everybody has an amazing, beautiful day.
Me too.
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, be sure to hit follow on your favorite podcast app. And if this episode could impact someone you know, please help us spread the word and pass it along. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.